Just sign here, Mom. It's nothing important. Just some simple papers so I can help manage your medications when you're at our house. Those were the words my daughter-in-law Vanessa spoke, as she slid a stack of documents across my kitchen table on a bright Tuesday morning. I almost signed them. My pen was literally touching the paper when something made me pause. Maybe it was the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Maybe it was how my son Derek suddenly became very interested in his coffee cup. Or maybe it was the memory of my late husband Raymond whispering in my ear like he used to. Slow down, Beatrice. Read the fine print. That pause, that one moment of hesitation, saved my life as I knew it. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Beatrice Holloway, and I'm 71 years old. For the past 3 years since Raymond passed away from a sudden heart attack, I thought I had been building a closer relationship with my son and his wife. They had started visiting more frequently, calling to check in, inviting me to Sunday dinners at their home in the suburbs. After 48 years of marriage, the loneliness of widowhood had been crushing, and their increased attention felt like a lifeline. I had convinced myself that grief had brought us together, that tragedy had reminded them how precious family connections were. I was so desperate to believe in their love that I ignored every single warning sign screaming at me to protect myself. The morning Vanessa brought those papers started like any other Wednesday. I had been up since 6, tending to the herb garden Raymond and I had planted in our backyard. The rosemary was flourishing, and I had been cutting sprigs to dry for the chicken dish I planned to make for Derek and Vanessa's visit. They had called the night before asking if they could stop by in the morning to discuss something important. I had assumed they wanted to talk about the upcoming holidays, or maybe announce they were finally trying for a baby. At 71, I was ready to be a grandmother. I had been ready for years. Vanessa arrived wearing one of those expensive athleisure outfits that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, her dark hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail that probably required a professional stylist. She carried a leather portfolio that looked important and official. Derek followed behind her, dressed in his usual business casual attire, but there was something different about his posture. He seemed tense, uncomfortable, like a man who knew he was about to do something wrong, but had convinced himself it was necessary. "Morning, Mom," Derek said, kissing my cheek in that perfunctory way he had developed over the years. Not the warm embrace of my little boy, but the obligatory gesture of a 43-year-old man who had learned to show affection without actually feeling it. "Thanks for having us over on such short notice." "Of course, sweetheart. You know you're always welcome here. I made those blueberry muffins you love, and I've got fresh coffee brewing." I had spent an hour that morning making those muffins from scratch, using Raymond's mother's recipe, the one Derek had loved since childhood. I watched him take one and barely taste it before setting it aside, and something in my chest tightened with disappointment I tried to ignore. Vanessa settled at my kitchen table like she owned the place, spreading out papers from her portfolio with practiced efficiency. She had been a paralegal before she married Derek, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew how to navigate legal documents. That should have been my first clue. "So, Beatrice, Derek and I have been talking, and we're really concerned about you living here all alone. This house is so big and you're not getting any younger. What if something happened and no one was here to help you?" I felt the familiar sting of being reminded of my age, of being treated like I was fragile and incompetent simply because I had reached 71. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. I go to the gym 3 times a week, I volunteer at the library every Tuesday, and Dr. Morrison just gave me a clean bill of health at my last physical." "We know you think you're fine," Derek interjected, and I noticed he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "But Vanessa and I have been researching, and there are a lot of things that can happen to people your age. Memory issues, confusion, falls. We just want to make sure you're protected." Protected? The word hung in the air like a threat disguised as concern. Protected from what exactly? Vanessa smiled that smile again, the one that was supposed to look caring but felt calculated. "From people who might try to take advantage of you. From making financial mistakes that could impact your security. From all the dangers that come with aging alone." She pushed the stack of papers closer to me. "These documents just give Derek and me the ability to help you manage certain aspects of your life. Your medical decisions when you're at our house, some financial oversight to make sure bills get paid on time, that sort of thing. It's really very standard for people in your situation. People in my situation. As if being a widow in my 70s automatically made me incompetent. I picked up the papers and started reading the first page. It was dense legal language, the kind designed to confuse rather than clarify. I saw phrases like durable power of attorney, and healthcare proxy, and financial conservatorship. My hand started shaking slightly as I continued reading. This wasn't simple paperwork to help with medications. This was a complete transfer of control over my life. This says you would have the authority to make all my medical decisions, not just at your house. And this section here, it gives you control over my bank accounts, my investments, even the deed to this house. I looked up at Derek, searching his face for some explanation that would make sense. Why would I need to sign away control of everything I own? You're not signing anything away, Mom, Derek said quickly. But his voice had that same false brightness people use when they're lying to children. We're just making sure we can step in if you need help. You know, if something happens and you can't make decisions for yourself. But I can make decisions for myself right now. If something happens in the future, we can address it then. Why the urgency? I set the papers down and folded my hands on top of them. A gesture Raymond had taught me years ago when he wanted to signal he wasn't going to be pushed into anything. Vanessa's expression shifted slightly, the fake warmth cooling into something harder. The urgency is that we're trying to be proactive instead of reactive. Do you know how difficult it is to get these arrangements in place after someone is already incapacitated? We're trying to save you and us from a legal nightmare down the road. There it was. The truth slipping through the careful packaging. They weren't worried about saving me from anything. They were worried about saving themselves from the inconvenience of having to deal with me later. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not comfortable signing these documents today. I'd like to have my lawyer look at them first. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Derek's face flushed red, and Vanessa's jaw tightened in a way that made her look almost predatory. Your lawyer? Vanessa repeated. Why would you need a lawyer? We're family. Don't you trust us? It was the classic manipulation tactic, turning my reasonable caution into an accusation of distrust, making me the bad guy for wanting to protect myself. It's not about trust. It's about being smart. Raymond always said that any important legal document should be reviewed by a professional before signing. It's just common sense. Mom, you're being paranoid, Derek said, and now there was an edge to his voice I had never heard before. We drove all the way out here to help you. And you're treating us like we're trying to scam you or something. I'm not treating you like anything. I'm simply saying I want my lawyer to review these documents before I sign them. If everything is as straightforward as you say, then there shouldn't be any problem with that, right? I kept my voice calm and reasonable, even though my heart was pounding. Some instinct I didn't even know I had was screaming at me that something was very wrong with this entire situation. Vanessa gathered up the papers with sharp, angry movements. Fine. Have your lawyer look at them. But I want you to know that Derek and I are very hurt by your lack of trust. After everything we've done for you, all the time we've spent making sure you're okay, this is how you repay us? By acting like we're criminals. I never said. I started, but Vanessa cut me off. We're trying to help you, Beatrice. We're trying to make sure you're taken care of. But if you don't want our help, if you'd rather struggle alone, then that's your choice. Just don't come crying to us when you can't remember to pay your electric bill, or you fall down the stairs and no one finds you for days. She stood up, slinging her expensive purse over her shoulder. Come on, Derek. We've wasted enough time here. Derek hesitated, looking between me and Vanessa like a child caught between two parents. For a moment I thought he might stay, might choose his mother over his wife, might remember who had raised him and loved him unconditionally for 43 years. But then he stood up and followed Vanessa to the door. I really wish you'd reconsider, Mom. We're just trying to do the right thing here. The right thing. I watched them leave, their expensive car pulling out of my driveway with the kind of aggressive speed that spoke to Vanessa's anger. I stood at my kitchen window, still holding the papers they had left behind in their hurry to make a dramatic exit. The papers that were supposed to be simple but were anything but. I sat back down at the table, my hands trembling as I spread the documents out in front of me. Now that I could read them without the pressure of their presence, The full scope of what they had asked me to sign became horrifyingly clear. This wasn't just power of attorney. This was a complete takeover of my life. They would have had control over my medical care, my finances, my property, every single decision about my existence. And there, buried in the middle of the document, was a clause about residential placement at the discretion of the appointed conservators. They had been planning to put me in a home, to take control of everything Raymond and I had built over 48 years of marriage, everything we had saved and invested and protected, and use it for themselves while warehousing me in some facility where I would be out of their way. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My son, the child I had carried and birthed and raised and sacrificed for, had been planning to steal my life out from under me. I thought about all those Sunday dinners, all those concerned phone calls, all those visits that had seemed like evidence of renewed family bonds.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
They hadn't been reconnecting with me out of love. They had been grooming me, building trust so that I would sign away my rights without question. And I had almost done it. If not for that moment of hesitation, that flash of Raymond's memory reminding me to slow down and read carefully, I would have signed those papers and handed them my entire existence on a silver platter. My phone rang, startling me out of my spiraling thoughts. It was Monica Ramirez, my next-door neighbor and friend for the past 15 years. Beatrice, I just saw Derek and Vanessa leaving. They looked upset. Is everything okay? Monica was 73. A retired nurse with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that I had always appreciated. She had been my rock after Raymond died, bringing me meals and sitting with me during the worst nights when the loneliness felt like it would swallow me whole. I'm not sure, I admitted. Can you come over? I need another set of eyes on something. She was at my door in less than 5 minutes, still wearing her gardening gloves. I showed her the documents, watching her face darken as she read through them. Monica had spent 40 years in healthcare, including time in elder care facilities. She knew exactly what these documents meant and what they could be used for. Beatrice, you cannot sign these. Under any circumstances. Monica set the papers down and looked at me with genuine fear in her eyes. I've seen cases like this before. Adult children who convince their parents to sign over power of attorney, and then they drain their accounts, sell their houses, and stick them in the cheapest nursing homes they can find. By the time the parent realizes what's happening, they have no legal standing to fight back. But Derek is my son. Surely he wouldn't. I couldn't even finish the sentence because deep down, I knew Monica was right. The evidence was right there in the documents they had tried to get me to sign without legal review. Did they pressure you to sign immediately? Without having a lawyer look at them? Monica asked. Yes. They said it was just simple paperwork, that I was being paranoid for wanting my lawyer to review them first. Vanessa got very angry when I refused. Monica nodded grimly. That's exactly how these scams work. They rely on trust and urgency. They make you feel guilty for being cautious. Beatrice, you need to call your lawyer right now. Today. And you need to make sure Derek and Vanessa never get their hands on these signed documents. I reached for my phone with shaking hands and dialed the number for James Whitmore, the attorney who had handled Raymond's estate and had been our family lawyer for over 20 years. His secretary put me through immediately when I said it was urgent. Beatrice, what's wrong? James asked, his warm baritone voice instantly making me feel safer. I need you to look at some documents Derek and Vanessa brought me this morning. They wanted me to sign them immediately, said they were just simple papers to help manage my medications. But James, when I actually read them, they're not simple at all. I think they're trying to take control of everything. There was a long pause. I can see you this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Bring the documents. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and don't let those documents out of your sight. If what you're describing is what I think it is, we may have a very serious problem on our hands. After I hung up, Monica made us both tea and sat with me at the kitchen table. I'm proud of you for trusting your instincts, she said. A lot of people in your situation would have signed those papers just to avoid conflict with their children. You were smart enough to pause and question. I almost didn't, I admitted. I almost signed them just to make Derek and Vanessa happy, to prove I trusted them. If Raymond hadn't popped into my head at that exact moment, reminding me to read carefully, I don't know what would have happened. Raymond is still looking out for you, Monica said gently. Even from wherever he is now. The rest of the morning dragged by in agonizing slowness. I tried to distract myself with housework, but I kept returning to those documents, reading them over and over, finding new horrors in the legal language. There was a section about incapacity determination that gave Derek and Vanessa the right to have me declared mentally incompetent based on the opinion of a single doctor of their choosing. Another clause about asset management that would allow them to sell my house, liquidate my investments, and control every penny I had. Raymond and I had been married for 48 years. We had both worked full-time jobs, saved diligently, invested wisely, and built a comfortable retirement. This house was paid off. I had a healthy investment portfolio, a generous pension from my 35 years as an elementary school teacher, and Raymond's life insurance. I wasn't wealthy by any means, but I was secure, comfortable, independent. And my son and his wife had been planning to take all of that away from me. At 1:45, I gathered the documents, my purse, and my courage, and drove to James Whitmore's office downtown. The law firm occupied the third floor of a historic building, and I had been there many times over the years for wills, estate planning, and the heartbreaking work of settling Raymond's affairs after his death. James's secretary, a kind woman named Patricia who was probably close to my age, greeted me with concern. "He's expecting you, Beatrice. Go right in." James Whitmore was 65, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses that made him look like everyone's idea of a trustworthy attorney. He stood when I entered, coming around his massive oak desk to shake my hand and guide me to the comfortable chairs by the window. "Tell me everything," he said simply. I walked him through the entire morning, from Derek and Vanessa's unexpected visit to their pressure for me to sign immediately to their angry departure when I insisted on legal review. Then I handed him the documents and watched his expression change as he read through them. "My God," he muttered halfway through the second page. By the time he finished reading, his face was set in grim lines. "Beatrice, do you understand what you would have signed if you hadn't stopped to think?" "I think so. But I want to hear it from you." James set the papers on his desk and removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes like he was trying to erase what he had just read. "This is one of the most aggressive power of attorney and conservatorship documents I've ever seen. If you had signed this, Derek and Vanessa would have had complete control over every aspect of your life. They could make all your medical decisions, including end-of-life care. They could access all your bank accounts and investment portfolios. They could sell your house without your consent. They could place you in a long-term care facility against your will. And this clause here." He pointed to a section near the end. "This essentially waives your right to revoke these powers once granted. You would have needed to prove in court that they were abusing their authority, and by that point, you wouldn't have access to your own money to hire an attorney." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "That's legal? Someone can sign away their rights like that?" Unfortunately, with the right language and the right circumstances, yes. These documents are carefully crafted to appear like standard estate planning tools. But the way they're written, they're actually a blueprint for elder financial abuse. James put his glasses back on and looked at me with genuine concern. "Beatrice, I need to ask you something difficult. Has Derek or Vanessa been pressuring you about money? Have they asked you for loans or financial help?" I thought about it. Not directly. But they did convince me to help with their down payment when they bought their house 5 years ago. I gave them $50,000. They said they would pay me back, but they never have. And last year, when Vanessa lost her job, I covered their mortgage payments for 3 months. That was another $8,000. Did you have any of that in writing? Any loan agreements? James was taking notes now. No. They're family. I didn't think I needed contracts with my own son. I could hear how naive that sounded as soon as the words left my mouth. James nodded sympathetically. "That's exactly what people like this count on. They exploit the trust and love between family members. Beatrice, I think Derek and Vanessa are in serious financial trouble, and they see your assets as the solution. This document would have given them legal access to everything you own. What do I do?" The question came out smaller than I intended. The voice of a frightened old woman instead of the strong, independent person I had always believed I was. "First, you're going to leave these documents with me. I'm going to make copies for our files and for law enforcement. Second, you're going to go home and check all your financial accounts immediately. Make sure there haven't been any unauthorized transactions. Third, you're going to change any passwords or PINs that Derek or Vanessa might know. And fourth, James paused, his expression sympathetic but firm, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that we may need to involve the police. The police. My voice came out as a whisper. But Derek is my son. Derek and Vanessa attempted to defraud you. They created fraudulent legal documents designed to steal your assets and your autonomy. That's not just unethical, Beatrice. It's criminal. James leaned forward. I know this is painful. I know he's your son and you love him. But he was willing to destroy your life for financial gain. You need to protect yourself, even if that means protecting yourself from him. I left James Whitmore's office in a daze, clutching a folder containing copies of the documents Derek and Vanessa had tried to make me sign. The originals stayed with James, locked in his safe like evidence in a crime drama. Except this wasn't a television show. This was my life, my family. My son who I had nursed through chicken pox and taught to ride a bicycle and sent off to college with tears of pride streaming down my face. That same son had just tried to steal everything from me. The drive home took longer than usual, because I kept having to pull over when my vision blurred with tears. By the time I finally made it back to my house, the sun was setting and casting long shadows across the yard Raymond had loved so much. Monica's car was in my driveway. She must have been watching for me because she came out of her house before I even got out of my car. How bad is it? She asked, taking my arm and guiding me inside like I was an invalid. Worse than I imagined. James says they were trying to commit fraud. He used the word criminal. I sank into Raymond's old recliner, the one I had kept even though it clashed with the rest of my living room furniture. Sometimes I sat in it just to feel close to him. Right now I needed that comfort more than ever. Monica made tea without asking, the way she always did during crisis moments. She had been there when Raymond died, had held me while I sobbed, had helped me sort through his things when I finally found the strength. Now she was here again, being strong when I couldn't be. What did James tell you to do? Check my accounts, change my passwords, prepare for the possibility of involving police. I took the tea she offered, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. Monica, how do I call the police on my own son? How do I do that to Derek? How could Derek do this to you? Monica countered gently. Beatrice, this wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. They created legal documents specifically designed to steal from you. They pressured you to sign without legal review. They got angry when you wanted to protect yourself. Those aren't the actions of people who care about you. I knew she was right, but knowing something intellectually and accepting it emotionally were two entirely different things. I need to check my accounts like James said. Will you stay with me while I do it? We moved to my home office, the small room off the kitchen where Raymond used to pay bills, and I now managed the household finances. I logged into my bank account first, my hands shaking so badly that Monica had to type in the password. The checking account looked normal at first glance. Then I started scrolling through recent transactions. Wait. Go back. Monica pointed at the screen. That withdrawal. $5,000 3 weeks ago. Did you make that? I stared at the transaction. No. I don't remember that at all. I clicked on the details. The withdrawal had been made at a branch across town, one I never used. How is this possible? I have my debit card right here in my wallet. Do Derek or Vanessa have keys to your house? Monica asked. Yes. I gave Derek a spare key years ago in case of emergencies. The implications of that simple fact crashed over me like ice water. They had access to my home whenever I wasn't here. They could have gone through my papers, found account numbers, forged documents. Oh God. What else have they done? I pulled up my investment accounts next. My retirement portfolio that Raymond and I had built over decades showed a transfer of $10,000 2 months ago to an account I didn't recognize. My savings account was down $15,000 from what I remembered. Altogether, they had stolen $30,000 from me, and I hadn't even noticed because I didn't check these accounts frequently. Why would I? I had trusted that my money was safe. I'm calling James. Monica already had her phone out. She explained what we had found, listened for a moment, then handed me the phone. Beatrice, this changes everything, James said without preamble. We're not just talking about attempted fraud anymore. They've already been stealing from you. I'm calling the police right now. Don't touch anything else on those accounts. We need to preserve the evidence exactly as it is. James, I don't know if I can do this. He's my son. My voice broke on the last word. I know. And I'm sorry. But Beatrice, they've stolen $30,000 from you already. If you had signed those documents this morning, they would have had legal access to everything else. Your house, your pension, your investments, all of it. This isn't going to stop unless you stop it. His voice gentled. You taught elementary school for 35 years. You protected children every single day. Now you need to protect yourself. After I hung up, Monica and I sat in silence for a long moment. I should call Derek, I finally said. Give him a chance to explain. Maybe there's some misunderstanding. Beatrice, Monica started, but I was already dialing his number. Derek answered on the third ring. Mom, I'm surprised to hear from you after how you treated us this morning. The accusation in his voice, the way he made me the villain in this story, sparked something hot and angry in my chest. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Have you been taking money from my accounts? The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know even before he spoke. What are you talking about? I'm looking at my bank statements right now. There's $30,000 missing from various accounts over the past 2 months. Withdrawals and transfers that I didn't authorize. Did you take that money, Derek? Mom, you're being paranoid again. You probably made those transactions and forgot about them. That's exactly why Vanessa and I are worried about you. You're having memory issues. The gaslighting was so blatant that it took my breath away. I don't have memory issues. My doctor confirmed that at my last physical. I'm asking you directly. Did you steal $30,000 from me? I didn't steal anything. His voice rose defensively. You're my mother. What's yours is family money. We've been struggling financially and you have plenty. I was just borrowing it until we got back on our feet. I would have told you eventually. Borrowing requires asking permission, Derek. Taking money without permission is called stealing. I could hear my teacher voice coming out, the one I had used with students who tried to lie their way out of trouble. And those documents you brought this morning, those weren't about helping me. They were about taking control of everything I own. Who have you been talking to? Vanessa's voice came through the phone, sharp and angry. She must have grabbed it from Derek. Did you show those papers to someone? They're private legal documents, Beatrice. You had no right. I had every right. They're documents I was supposed to sign. My lawyer looked at them and told me exactly what they were. Fraud. Elder abuse. Criminal conspiracy. The words felt foreign in my mouth, too harsh and legal for a conversation with my daughter-in-law. How could you do this to me? How could we do this? Vanessa's laugh was bitter and sharp. You've been sitting in that huge house, hoarding money you don't even need while Derek and I struggle. You gave us a pittance for our down payment and acted like you were being so generous. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars just sitting there doing nothing. We deserve that money. Derek is your only son. Who else are you going to leave it to? Maybe I'll leave it to charity. Maybe I'll spend every last penny traveling the world. It's my money, Vanessa. Mine and Raymond's. We earned it, we saved it, and what I do with it is none of your business. I was shaking with rage now, all the fear burned away by the audacity of her entitlement. You selfish old woman, Vanessa hissed. We've wasted 3 years being nice to you, pretending to care about your boring stories and your dead husband. Do you know how tedious it's been? But we did it because we thought you'd be grateful. We thought you'd want to take care of your son. Instead, you're going to die alone in that house and leave everything to strangers. Better alone than surrounded by thieves. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking so violently that I dropped the phone. Monica picked it up and set it on the desk, then pulled me into a fierce hug. I'm proud of you. That took courage. I don't feel courageous. I feel sick. And I did. My stomach was churning, and my head pounded with the beginning of what promised to be a vicious headache. 3 years. She said 3 years of pretending to care about me. Since right after Raymond died. They're vultures, Monica said bluntly. They waited until you were vulnerable and alone. Then they moved in for the kill. But you stopped them, Beatrice. You figured it out before they could finish destroying you. There was a knock at my front door, authoritative and official. Monica went to answer it while I tried to compose myself. I heard low voices in the hallway, then Monica returned with 2 police officers, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a younger man who looked barely old enough to shave. Mrs. Holloway, I'm Detective Sarah Chun, and this is Officer Marcus Webb. James Whitmore called us about a potential case of elder financial abuse. Can we come in and talk with you? I led them to my living room, grateful that I had cleaned it that morning before Derek and Vanessa's visit. Seemed like a lifetime ago. Detective Chun sat across from me with a notepad while Officer Webb stood near the doorway, observing. Monica positioned herself next to me on the couch, a silent show of support. Mr. Whitmore filled us in on some of the details, but I'd like to hear the story from you directly, Detective Chun said. Start from the beginning and tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Raymond's death 3 years ago, about how Derek and Vanessa had suddenly become more attentive, about the Sunday dinners and the phone calls and the way I had believed their interest was genuine. I told her about this morning's visit, the documents they had brought, the pressure to sign immediately without legal review. I showed her the copies James had given me, watching her face harden as she read through them. And then today, after meeting with my lawyer, I discovered money missing from my accounts. $30,000 in unauthorized withdrawals and transfers over the past 2 months. I pulled up the transaction records on my computer, and Detective Chun took photos of each screen with her phone. Do Derek or Vanessa have access to your home? She asked. Derek has a key. I gave it to him years ago. And do they have any of your financial information? Account numbers, passwords, PINs? I thought about it carefully. I keep a file folder in my home office with important documents. Account statements, investment records, that sort of thing. Anyone with access to this house could have found it. Detective Chun exchanged a look with Officer Webb. Mrs. Holloway, based on what you've told me and the evidence you've shown me, I believe you've been the victim of multiple crimes. Financial exploitation of an elderly person, identity theft, fraud, and attempted fraud. The documents they tried to get you to sign could also constitute conspiracy to commit elder abuse. The word victim hit me like a slap. I had never thought of myself that way. I was Beatrice Holloway, retired teacher, widow, mother. Not a victim. What happens now? Now we open an official investigation. We'll need to take formal statements from you, and we'll need copies of all relevant documents and financial records. We'll also need to speak with Derek and Vanessa. Detective Chun's expression was sympathetic but professional. I have to warn you, Mrs. Holloway, this is going to be difficult. Cases involving family members always are. Your son and daughter-in-law will likely deny everything, and it could get ugly. It's already ugly, I said quietly. They've been stealing from me for months. They tried to trick me into signing away my independence. And when I confronted them, Vanessa told me they've spent 3 years pretending to care about me, just waiting for the right moment to take everything. I looked Detective Chun in the eye. I'm 71 years old. I've survived the death of my husband, raised a son who turned out to be a stranger, and built a life I'm proud of. I'm not going to let them destroy it just because facing the truth is uncomfortable. Good, Detective Chun said with a small smile. Because you're going to need that strength. Officer Webb is going to take your formal statement while I start the paperwork for a warrant to examine Derek and Vanessa's financial records. We'll also be requesting security footage from the bank where those withdrawals were made. If Derek or Vanessa made them in person, we'll have video evidence. The formal statement took over an hour. Officer Webb asked me to recount every detail I could remember, writing everything down in his neat, careful handwriting. When had Derek and Vanessa started visiting more frequently? Had they ever asked about my finances? Had I noticed anything missing from my home? Had they ever discussed their own financial situation? The questions went on, each one forcing me to examine my memories through a new, darker lens. By the time the police left, it was nearly 9 o'clock at night. Monica had ordered Chinese food at some point, but it sat untouched on my kitchen counter. I couldn't imagine eating anything. My stomach was tied in knots, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's face from this morning. The way he couldn't meet my eyes. The way he had defended Vanessa even when he knew she was lying. The way he had chosen her over me without hesitation. You should try to eat something, Monica said. pushing a container of fried rice toward me. "You're going to need your strength." "I keep thinking about when Derek was little," I said instead of eating. "He was such a sweet child. Sensitive, kind, always wanting to help. When he was 8, he saved his allowance for 3 months to buy me a birthday present. It was a little ceramic bird, ugly as sin, but he was so proud of himself. I still have it on my dresser upstairs." Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't bother to wipe them away. When did that little boy turn into someone who could steal from his own mother? Monica didn't have an answer for that. She just sat with me while I cried, occasionally refilling my tea, being present in the way only true friends can be. Eventually, she helped me upstairs to bed, making sure I had water on my nightstand and my phone nearby. "Call me if you need anything. I don't care what time it is. I'm right next door." After she left, I lay in the bed I had shared with Raymond for 45 years, staring at the ceiling and wondering how everything had gone so wrong. I thought about the life we had built together, the dreams we had shared. We had imagined growing old surrounded by family, spoiling grandchildren, being the wise elders everyone turned to for advice and comfort. Instead, I was alone in this too-big house, my only child revealed as a thief, my carefully constructed vision of family shattered beyond repair. Sleep didn't come that night. Every time I started to drift off, I would jolt awake, convinced I heard someone trying to break in. Logically, I knew Derek wouldn't be that stupid. He knew the police were involved now, but logic and fear don't always coexist peacefully at 3 in the morning. I finally gave up trying to sleep around 5 and went downstairs to make coffee. The morning paper was already on my front porch. I brought it in and tried to focus on the headlines, but the words swam before my eyes. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Derek to call with some explanation that would make everything make sense. But my phone stayed silent. At 8 o'clock, James Whitmore called. "Beatrice, how are you holding up?" "I didn't sleep. I keep thinking this is all some terrible nightmare and I'm going to wake up." I wrapped both hands around my coffee mug, seeking warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. "I wish I could tell you it gets easier, but I'd be lying. The next few weeks are going to be challenging." James paused and I could hear papers rustling in the background. "Detective Chun contacted me this morning. They've obtained the security footage from the bank. It shows Vanessa making the $5,000 withdrawal 3 weeks ago. She had your ID, your debit card, and what appears to be a forged signature authorization." I closed my eyes, feeling sick. How is that even possible? I had my debit card with me the whole time. She probably had a duplicate made. It's not difficult if you have access to the original. And if Derek had your spare house key, they could have gotten into your home office, found your ID, made copies. James's voice was gentle but matter-of-fact. "Beatrice, these were premeditated crimes. They didn't just stumble into this. They planned it carefully over a long period of time. What about the investment account transfers? Can those be traced?" "We're working on that now. The receiving account is in Vanessa's name only, which was probably intentional to keep Derek's fingerprints off it. But we have phone records showing multiple calls between Derek's phone and the investment company around the time of the transfers. We believe he may have impersonated you over the phone to authorize the transfers." "That's illegal, right? Impersonating someone." I heard the desperate hope in my own voice, the need for someone to confirm that yes, what they had done was wrong. I wasn't overreacting, I wasn't being paranoid or difficult or any of the things Vanessa had accused me of being. Very illegal. Identity theft, fraud, theft by deception. The list keeps growing. James hesitated. "Beatrice, there's something else. Detective Chun wants to search your house. She's concerned that Derek and Vanessa may have taken other items, documents, credit cards, anything they could use to access more of your money. I think you should let her do it." The thought of strangers going through my home, my private spaces, cataloging my possessions like inventory, made me want to refuse. But I thought about those $30,000, about the documents designed to steal everything else, about Vanessa's voice on the phone saying they had wasted 3 years pretending to care about me. "When does she want to come?" "This afternoon if that works for you. I'll be there with you. You won't have to do this alone." After I hung up, I forced myself to eat some toast and drink another cup of coffee. Then I started going through my house room by room, trying to see it through the eyes of thieves. My jewelry box on my dresser, filled with pieces Raymond had given me over the years. My spare checkbook in the kitchen drawer. The cash I kept in an envelope in my underwear drawer for emergencies. The spare credit cards in my wallet. I found my jewelry box unlocked when I was certain I had locked it last week. My grandmother's emerald ring was missing. So was the pearl necklace Raymond had given me for our 40th anniversary. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the empty velvet slots where those precious pieces had been, and something inside me finally broke open. Not grief this time but rage. Pure white-hot fury at the violation, at the theft not just of money but of memories, of sentimental value that couldn't be measured in dollars. I called Detective Chun directly. They took my jewelry, family heirlooms, things that can't be replaced. We'll add it to the list of charges, she said. Mrs. Holloway, are you going to be okay? Do you have someone who can stay with you? My neighbor Monica. She's been helping me through this. I took a shaky breath. Detective Chun, I want them prosecuted. I want them to face consequences for what they've done. I don't care if Derek is my son. What he did is unforgivable. I'm glad to hear you say that, because what I'm about to tell you might change your mind about pursuing this. Detective Chen's voice took on a harder edge. We've done some preliminary investigation into Derek and Vanessa's finances. They're in serious trouble. Their house is in foreclosure. They have over $80,000 in credit card debt. Vanessa has been out of work for over a year, not the few months they told you. Derek's business is failing, and they're about to file for bankruptcy. Your $30,000 was just the beginning. Those power of attorney documents weren't about helping you. They were about survival. Yours. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They hadn't just been greedy. They had been desperate. And desperate people were dangerous. If I had signed those papers, what would have happened to me? Based on the residential placement clause, I believe they would have tried to have you committed to a nursing facility as quickly as possible. Once you were there, they would have sold your house, liquidated your investments, and used the money to save themselves from bankruptcy. By the time you realized what was happening, you would have had no legal standing to stop them and no resources to fight back. Detective Chun paused. Mrs. Holloway, you saved your own life when you refused to sign those documents. I spent the rest of the morning in a fog, moving through my house like a ghost. Monica came over around noon with sandwiches neither of us ate. We sat in silence in my kitchen, the same kitchen where just yesterday morning I had made blueberry muffins for my son, believing he loved me, believing I was part of a family that cared about me. James arrived at 1:30, followed shortly by Detective Chun and Officer Webb. They spent 3 hours going through my house with methodical precision, documenting everything they found or didn't find. Missing jewelry, a spare checkbook with 3 checks torn out, credit card statements showing charges I didn't recognize, a folder in my home office that should have contained my social security card and birth certificate, now empty. They were thorough, Detective Chun said as she photographed the empty folder. This level of planning suggests they've been working on this for a long time, probably since shortly after your husband passed away. Vanessa said 3 years, I told her. Last night on the phone, she said they'd wasted 3 years pretending to care about me. Then that's our timeline. 3 years of premeditation, which makes this much more serious. We're not talking about a crime of opportunity. We're talking about a sustained campaign of abuse and theft against a vulnerable widow. Detective Chun closed her evidence folder and looked at me with genuine compassion. Mrs. Holloway, I need you to understand something. What your son and daughter-in-law did to you is not your fault. They took advantage of your grief and your love. They saw your trust as a weakness to exploit, not a gift to treasure. You didn't do anything wrong. But I had done something wrong. I had ignored warning signs. I had made excuses for behavior that should have alarmed me. I had chosen to believe the best of people who were showing me exactly who they were. That was on me. When will you arrest them? We're going to bring them in for questioning tomorrow morning. Based on the evidence we've collected today, we'll be filing charges for financial exploitation of an elderly person, identity theft, fraud, grand theft, and conspiracy. The district attorney will decide exactly how to proceed, but I would expect formal arrests within the next few days. Detective Chun handed me a business card. If they try to contact you, don't engage. Document everything and call me immediately. If they show up at your house, call 911. Under no circumstances should you be alone with them. After everyone left, Monica and I sat in my living room watching the sun set through the windows. Raymond had installed himself the year before he died. I should feel something, I said into the quiet. Sadness, fear, anger, something. But I just feel empty. That's shock, Monica said. Your brain is protecting you from processing everything at once. The feelings will come later, and when they do, they're going to hit you like a freight train. But you'll survive them. You're stronger than you think. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this nightmare had an ending, that eventually I would wake up and be okay. But right now, sitting in the house I no longer felt safe in, thinking about the son who had betrayed me, I couldn't see how anything would ever be okay again. My phone buzzed with a text message. Against my better judgment, I looked at it. The number was Derek's, but I suspected Vanessa had written the message. You're going to regret this. We're family. You can't just throw us away because you're paranoid. Drop the charges or you'll never see us again. I showed the message to Monica, who immediately called Detective Chun. She needs to know about this. It could be considered intimidation or witness tampering. While Monica was on the phone, I typed out a response to Derek's number. My fingers shook, but the words came out clear and firm. You stopped being my family when you tried to steal my life. The police have all the evidence they need. And I don't want to see you again. You made sure of that when you told me my death would be convenient for you. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I blocked Derek's number, blocked Vanessa's number, and set my phone down with trembling hands. Good, Monica said when she saw what I had done. Now let's change your locks. Tonight. I don't care that it's late. We're calling a 24-hour locksmith right now. She was already dialing before I could protest. And she was right. I couldn't spend another night in this house knowing that Derek still had a key, that he could walk in at any time, that I wasn't safe in my own home. The locksmith arrived at 9 o'clock. He changed every exterior lock and installed a chain on the front door and a new deadbolt on the back. He showed me how to work the new security system Monica had insisted on purchasing, a simple setup with cameras at the front and back doors that recorded to my phone. If anyone shows up, you'll get an alert immediately, the locksmith explained. And the footage is automatically saved to the cloud, so even if someone tampers with the cameras, you'll still have the recording. After he left, Monica helped me check every window lock and make sure every door was secure. We were on the second floor, checking the guest bedroom window when I finally broke down. What if they come back? What if they try to hurt me? I'm 71 years old, Monica. I can't fight them off. They won't come back, Monica said firmly. They're too smart for that. They know the police are watching them now. And you're not alone. I'm right next door. Detective Chun is one phone call away. You have people protecting you now. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to the house settle and creak around me, I didn't feel protected. I felt hunted. And I knew that no matter how many locks we changed or cameras we installed, the real damage had already been done. Derek and Vanessa had stolen more than money and jewelry. They had stolen my sense of safety, my belief in family, my ability to trust. Those things couldn't be replaced with security systems or police reports. Somewhere in the dark hours before dawn, I finally fell into an uneasy sleep, and I dreamed of Raymond, of the life we had built, of the future we had imagined. In my dream, he was trying to tell me something important, but I couldn't quite hear the words. I woke with the sun, his message lost but the feeling of his presence lingering like morning mist. The arrest happened on a Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after Derek and Vanessa had sat in my kitchen trying to steal my life. Detective Chun called me at 7 in the morning to let me know they were executing the warrant. I didn't ask if I could be there. I didn't want to see Derek in handcuffs, didn't want to watch my son being led away by police officers. Some images once seen can never be unseen. Instead, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee that had gone cold, staring at the chair where Derek had sat just 7 days ago. Monica came over without being asked, the way she had every morning since this nightmare began. She didn't try to make conversation or tell me everything would be okay. She just sat with me in the silence, bearing witness to my grief. My phone rang at 9:15. James Whitmore's name appeared on the screen. They're both in custody. Derek and Vanessa were arrested at their home this morning. They're being processed now and will be arraigned this afternoon. The district attorney wants to talk to you about the charges and what to expect moving forward. What are the charges? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, flat and emotionless. Financial exploitation of an elderly person in the first degree, identity theft, forgery, grand theft, conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted fraud. If convicted on all counts, they're each looking at significant prison time. James paused. Beatrice, the DA also found evidence that they were planning to forge your signature on the power of attorney documents. They had been practicing your signature. There were dozens of practice sheets in Vanessa's handwriting, getting your signature perfect. If you had refused to sign, they were going to sign for you. The coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. Monica was instantly there with paper towels, cleaning up the mess while I sat frozen in my chair. They had been planning to forge my signature. They weren't just willing to trick me into signing away my rights. They were prepared to do it without my consent at all. I want to testify, I heard myself say. When this goes to trial, I want to take the stand and tell everyone exactly what they did to me. Are you sure? James asked gently. It's going to be painful. Derek's attorney will try to make you look confused or vindictive. They'll argue that this is a family dispute blown out of proportion. They'll say you're a bitter old woman punishing your son for some perceived slight. Let them say whatever they want. I'm not afraid of the truth. And I wasn't. The fear had burned away over the past week, replaced by something harder and colder. Determination. These people had tried to destroy me, and I was going to make sure the world knew exactly what they had done. The arraignment was scheduled for 3 o'clock that afternoon. James offered to attend on my behalf, but I insisted on being there. I needed to see them, needed to look Derek in the eye and show him that I wasn't the weak, confused old woman they had counted on me being. Monica drove me to the courthouse, her presence a solid anchor in the storm of my emotions. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, nothing like the dramatic spaces I had seen on television. Derek and Vanessa sat at a table with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who probably cost more money than they could afford. When I walked in, Derek's head snapped up. For just a moment, our eyes met across the courtroom. I saw shock in his expression, and something that might have been shame. Then Vanessa whispered something in his ear and his face hardened into anger. The proceedings were formal and brief. The charges were read aloud, each one a knife to my heart. Financial exploitation, identity theft, forgery, grand theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. Derek and Vanessa both pleaded not guilty, their voices steady and sure. Their attorney argued for release on their own recognizance, citing their ties to the community and lack of criminal history. The prosecutor, a tired-looking man in his 50s, countered with the severity of the crimes and the vulnerability of the victim. Your Honor, these defendants engaged in a sustained campaign of abuse against the defendant's 71-year-old mother, the prosecutor said. They stole over $30,000, attempted to fraudulently obtain complete control over her finances and medical care, and forged legal documents. Mrs. Holloway has changed her locks because she's afraid of her own son. That's not a family dispute. That's criminal predation. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and reading glasses perched on her nose, looked from the prosecutor to the defense attorney and back again. Bail is set at $50,000 each. The defendants are to have no contact with the victim. If they violate this order, bail will be revoked immediately. Trial date is set for 6 weeks from today. Court is adjourned. I watched Derek and Vanessa being led away, saw the moment when reality seemed to crash over them both. Vanessa was crying, her perfect composure finally cracking. Derek looked lost, younger than his 43 years, like a little boy who had gotten caught doing something wrong and couldn't understand why everyone was so upset. Part of me wanted to go to him to comfort him the way I had when he was small. But that Derek was gone. Maybe he had never really existed at all. Outside the courthouse, a young woman with a camera approached me. Mrs. Holloway, I'm Jennifer Martinez from Channel 7 News. We're covering this story. Would you be willing to answer a few questions? James started to intervene, but I put my hand on his arm. What do you want to know? Why did you press charges against your own son? She thrust a microphone toward my face. I looked directly into the camera, speaking to Derek even though he wasn't there to hear me. Because what he did was wrong. Because loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you. Because I deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, not used and discarded when I'm no longer convenient. My voice was steady, stronger than I felt. I'm 71 years old. I've worked hard my entire life. My husband and I built something together. And when he died, I thought I could trust my family to honor his memory and care about me. Instead, they saw an opportunity to take everything. I won't let that happen. Not to me, and not to anyone else who might be in my situation. The interview aired on the evening news. Monica and I watched it together in my living room, and I barely recognized the woman on the screen. She looked older than I felt, tired and sad but somehow dignified. Strong. The news anchor called it a heartbreaking case of elder abuse, and mentioned that similar cases were becoming increasingly common. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Friends I hadn't heard from in months, neighbors I barely knew, former students who had seen the interview and wanted to offer support. James called to tell me the news coverage was good for the case, that public awareness of elder abuse would make the jury more sympathetic. But I didn't care about strategy or sympathy. I cared about the truth finally being told. That night I couldn't sleep again. I wandered through my house, looking at the photographs on the walls. Derek as a baby in Raymond's arms. Derek's first day of school. Derek graduating from college, his face bright with hope and possibility. Somewhere between that hopeful young man and the person who had tried to steal my life, something had gone terribly wrong. Maybe I had spoiled him, given him too much without teaching him the value of work and sacrifice. Maybe Vanessa had corrupted him, or maybe the corruption had always been there waiting for the right circumstances to emerge. I would probably never know the answer, and perhaps it didn't matter anymore. I took down the photographs one by one and put them in a box in the basement. I couldn't bear to look at them anymore. Couldn't reconcile the smiling child in those pictures with the man who had forged my signature and planned to warehouse me in a nursing home. The walls looked bare without them, but the emptiness felt honest. Better to acknowledge the loss than to pretend the illusion was still intact. The weeks leading up to the trial passed in a strange blur. I met with the prosecutor 3 times, going over my testimony until I could recite it in my sleep. James helped me organize my financial records, documenting every missing dollar and stolen piece of jewelry. Detective Chun kept me updated on the investigation, which had uncovered even more evidence of Derek and Vanessa's crimes. They had opened credit cards in my name, run up thousands in charges, then let the accounts go to collections. My credit score, which had been excellent for decades, was now in shambles. We're adding identity theft charges related to the fraudulent credit cards, Detective Chun told me during one of her updates. And we found something else. Vanessa had been researching nursing homes online. She had a spreadsheet comparing costs, with notes about which facilities had the loosest oversight and the fewest requirements for family visits. She was planning exactly where to put you, and she chose the cheapest, most isolating option she could find. I thought about what my life would have been like in one of those places, trapped in a small room surrounded by strangers, watching my life savings disappear while Derek and Vanessa lived in my house and spent my money. The image was so vivid and so terrifying that I had to sit down. Thank you for telling me. I need to know everything, no matter how painful. Monica convinced me to start seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Chun who specialized in trauma and family betrayal. During our sessions, I talked about Raymond and the life we had built, about my dreams for retirement that had included grandchildren and family gatherings. I cried about the Derek I thought I knew, the son I had loved who turned out to be a stranger. And slowly, painfully, I began to accept that none of this was my fault. I had been a good mother, a generous woman, a trusting widow. Derek and Vanessa had taken advantage of those qualities, but the qualities themselves weren't flaws. They were evidence of my capacity for love. The trial began on a cold morning in late October. I wore my best dress, the navy blue one Raymond had always said brought out my eyes, and Monica sat beside me in the gallery. The courtroom filled with people, strangers who had followed the case in the news, advocates for elder rights, reporters with notepads and cameras. Derek and Vanessa sat at the defense table looking small and defeated. Nothing like the confident couple who had sat in my kitchen trying to steal my life. The prosecutor's opening statement was clear and damning. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about trust betrayed in the cruelest possible way. The defendants, Derek Holloway and Vanessa Holloway, targeted Derek's own mother, a 71-year-old widow, and systematically stole from her, lied to her, and planned to imprison her in a nursing facility so they could take everything she owned. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated campaign of abuse that lasted years. The defense attorney tried to paint a different picture. She talked about Derek's difficult childhood, though I couldn't imagine what she meant since I had given him everything he ever needed. She suggested that I was vindictive, that I had never approved of Vanessa and was using the legal system to punish them for imaginary slights. She implied that I was confused about my own finances, that the missing money was due to my own forgetfulness rather than theft. Then it was time for me to take the stand. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I did. For 2 hours I walked the jury through every detail. The morning Derek and Vanessa had brought the fraudulent documents, the pressure to sign without legal review, my discovery of the missing money, the phone call where Vanessa had admitted they had been pretending to care about me for 3 years, the evidence of stolen jewelry, forged signatures, fraudulent credit cards. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I simply told the truth. During cross-examination, the defense attorney tried to shake me. Mrs. Holloway, isn't it true that you've had some memory issues in recent months? Forgetting appointments, misplacing items. No, that's not true. My doctor has confirmed that I have no cognitive impairment. But you can't remember making those withdrawals from your bank account, can you? I can't remember them because I didn't make them. Vanessa made them using a duplicate of my debit card and a forged authorization. You're very angry at my clients, aren't you, Mrs. Holloway? I looked at Derek, then really looked at him. He was staring at the table, unable to meet my eyes. I'm not angry. I'm heartbroken. I loved my son. I would have given him anything he needed if he had just asked. Instead, he chose to steal from me and planned to lock me away. That's not anger you're seeing. It's grief. The defense attorney had no response to that. She sat down, and the prosecutor stood for redirect. Mrs. Holloway, if Derek had come to you and told you he was in financial trouble, what would you have done? I would have helped him. I always helped him. That's what mothers do. My voice broke for the first time. But he didn't want my help. He wanted everything. And he was willing to destroy me to get it. The trial lasted 3 days. Other witnesses testified. Bank employees who confirmed the fraudulent transactions. Handwriting experts who verified the forged signatures. Detective Chun who walked the jury through the mountain of evidence. James Whitmore who explained the true meaning of the documents Derek and Vanessa had tried to make me sign. And finally, Vanessa herself, who took the stand in her own defense and claimed that everything had been Derek's idea, that she had just gone along with it because she loved him. I watched Derek's face when his wife threw him under the bus, saw the betrayal and hurt there. Welcome to my world, I thought. Now you know how it feels to be sacrificed by someone you trusted. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty. Derek sat with his head in his hands while Vanessa sobbed dramatically beside him. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later, and remanded them both to custody pending sentencing. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty and exhausted, like I had been fighting a war and finally reached the end only to discover there were no winners. Monica drove me home, and we sat in my living room not talking, just being present with each other in the aftermath. Sentencing day arrived cold and gray, matching my mood. The judge read out the sentences with no emotion. Derek received 5 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 3. Vanessa received 6 years because of her role in planning and executing the forgeries. The judge also ordered them to pay full restitution for all stolen money and property, though everyone in the courtroom knew I would probably never see that money again. Before they were led away, Derek turned and looked at me. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that somewhere under all the lies and manipulation, there was still a part of my son who loved me and regretted what he had done. But sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of fake love. Sorry doesn't return the jewelry that belonged to my grandmother. Sorry doesn't erase the fear I felt knowing my own child wanted to lock me away. I'm sorry too, I said. I'm sorry you turned into someone I don't recognize. I'm sorry I failed you somehow. But mostly, I'm sorry I'll never be able to trust you again. 3 months have passed since the trial ended. My life has found a new rhythm, different from what I imagined but somehow richer in unexpected ways. I sold the house, the one Derek had wanted to steal from me. It was too big, too full of memories, both good and poisoned. I bought a smaller cottage near Monica, close enough that we can walk to each other's homes but far enough that I have my own space. I started volunteering at a local organization that helps seniors protect themselves from financial abuse. I tell my story to anyone who will listen, hoping that maybe one person will recognize the warning signs in their own life and protect themselves before it's too late. The other volunteers have become my family, the kind you choose rather than the kind you're born with. James helped me establish a trust that will ensure my money goes to organizations that matter when I'm gone. The American Cancer Society in Raymond's memory. The local library where I spent so many happy hours. Scholarships for students who want to become teachers. My legacy won't be stolen by people who saw me as a piggy bank to be broken. I think about Derek sometimes. Wonder if he's learned anything in prison or if he's just counting down the days until he can get out and resume his life. Wonder if he thinks about me, if he regrets his choices, if he understands the magnitude of what he destroyed. But those thoughts come less frequently now, and they sting less sharply. Monica and I have coffee every morning on one of our porches, weather permitting. We take walks through the neighborhood. We've joined a book club and a gardening club and started taking watercolor painting classes on Tuesday evenings. My life is full in ways it never was when I was trying so hard to maintain a relationship with people who didn't value me. The other day, I received a letter from Derek. It had been forwarded through James, who read it first to make sure it wasn't manipulative or threatening. In the letter, Derek said he was in therapy in prison, trying to understand how he became the person who could do what he did. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, that he knew he had destroyed any chance of a relationship with me. He said he was writing not to make excuses but to take responsibility, to acknowledge that he had hurt me in ways that could never be repaired. I read the letter 3 times, then put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll be ready to respond. Maybe I'll even be ready to forgive, though forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. But today, right now, I'm focused on building the life I deserve. The life Raymond and I dreamed of, modified for my new reality as a woman alone but not lonely. I'm 72 now. I have friends who care about me for who I am, not what I can give them. I have purpose in my volunteer work. I have peace in my new home. I have the knowledge that I stood up for myself when it mattered most, that I didn't let fear or guilt or misplaced loyalty destroy me. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel the ghost of Raymond beside me. I tell him about my day, about the life I'm building, about the strength I found in myself that I never knew existed. I think he would be proud of me, proud that I protected what we built together, proud that I didn't let anyone take away my dignity or my independence. Derek made his choice when he decided to see me as an obstacle rather than his mother. I made my choice when I decided to protect myself rather than enabling his destruction. Neither choice was easy, but only one was right. I'm at peace with that, and peace, I've learned, is worth more than all the stolen money and broken bonds. It's worth everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.